You're listening to WSTU Stewart.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
Well, a very pleasant good evening. Time for Startup Talk from Indian River State College with Tom Kindred.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to another segment and installment of Startup Talk, the show designed to assist and help Treasure and Research Coast residents who want to start, grow, or accelerate their business. And what a great place it is to own and operate a business along the beautiful Research and Treasure Coast. We will spend time during our hour together this evening to highlight and create awareness regarding the very powerful and robust business assistance programs that exist right here in our community at our very own Indian River State College. I am Tom Kindred. I serve as the Regional Director for the Florida Small Business Development Center at IRSC. Our show today, as always, is powered by the Florida SBDC at IRSC and our good friends at Express Printing of Port St. Lucie. Greg, how are you this evening?
Doing well.
All right. Pioneer Sports Update. Women's volleyball still still dominating the courts.
They will be heading on the road again. They're road warriors, it seems like, the last 2 weeks. 4-4 on the year so far, so doing well. We now have a full roster of players for the guys. Couple players trading the beautiful beaches of Toronto for Florida.
Why would a guy want to come from Toronto to Florida and play basketball? I can't imagine.
I don't know, but one of them is about 6'10", so we're welcoming him. No. Yeah, it should be fun.
Well, again, I always tell folks it's great opportunity to come out and enjoy some real collegiate sports at Indian River State College. Never any charge. Maybe one or two of the nights they charge a little something when they're raising a little money, but most of the time it's always no cost to come out and participate in Pioneer Sports. I have not been to one single solitary men's basketball game that wasn't extremely exciting, man. Down to the wire, down to the buzzer. They're great games.
Scrimmages we start October 13th in Orlando. There will be JV teams from the Gators.
Nice.
South Florida, Central Florida. That should be an interesting test for everybody.
Well, good.
Yeah, and I think the top 4 teams in the United States will be here. So, it's going to be very interesting afternoon, to say the least.
Well, and again, women's volleyball also very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
They again, what is their record? Do you have it?
4-4.
4-4.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They started out 4-0, and they've stumbled a little bit, but they'll be okay.
Well, good.
Should be another good year.
Real quickly, want to make sure that everybody remembers we got a couple of nice business training and networking events and opportunities for the local business community to come out and participate in. Tomorrow, Friday the 7th, is the first annual Lincoln Park Business Expo. Going to get underway at the Percy Peak Gym on Avenue D at 11 o'clock. Got some great opening speakers. Got some folks coming in from Indian River State College, Dr. Nick Brown. We got Career Source, Research Coast, Lincoln Park Main Street's going to be involved in the welcome. I think Mayor Linda Hudson will be there to provide some welcoming. Then at 12 to 1, we've got Dr. David Washington with the United Servants for Youth. He is going to be the keynote speaker for lunch. Then I think Kalita Scott from the city of Fort Pierre is going to give out some community awards. So that all starts at 11 o'clock, and then lunch at 12, and then at 1 o'clock, she's got a pretty good listing of breakout sessions from 1 to about 4 o'clock. She's got 6 breakout sessions, everything from marketing, the entrepreneurial mindset, financial management for small business, general business, social media marketing. I might be giving one of those workshops and breakout sessions on what the SBDC can do for your business. So,
is that the 2 o'clock hour that I was planning a nap?
That was the 2 o'clock. Sure, you can.
Oh, okay.
It's easy to take a nap in my breakout session. Yes.
Might as well be like college. Nothing new.
I've been known to put a few people to sleep. Yes. So anyway, great event tomorrow. All taking place up in Fort Pierce at the Percy Peak Gym and at the Blackburn, the Indian River State College's Blackburn Center on Avenue D. So I encourage you to come out, take advantage of that. And then we've got another round of our Business Accelerator program cranking up on September the 11th down in Martin County. Again, going to be 10 nights of all kinds of great business workshops and training sessions, introduction to internet marketing, exceptional customer service, time management, sales and marketing for your business, small business finance, legal issues in the workplace. So all kinds of stuff going on with our Business Accelerator program. Probably the sixth round of the program we've done down in Martin
Last
County.
2 years have been sold out. Yeah.
Yep. City of Stewart and Martin County, big supporters of the program, and our good friends at the BDB, Tim Dewar and Maria at the Business Development Board down in Martin County, big supporters of the program. So anyway, for more information on that, you can always call us at the SBDC here at Indian River State College, or you can reach out to Maria at the BDB. Her number is 772-221-1380. So anyway, don't miss out. Again, if you're a Martin County business, City of Stewart business, take advantage of this Business Accelerator program down in Martin County.
Sounds great.
So with that, listen, we got a big night tonight. Very exciting topic. I know one that everyone wants to talk about. Taxes.
Maybe I'll move my nap up a little bit. Oh.
I mentioned to someone today, they called and they said, "Hey, what's going on the show tonight?" I said, "Well, we're going to talk about taxes." And I was quite excited about it because I know how important taxes are and how important you understand taxes and how important it is for municipalities to collect these taxes and use these tax dollars to improve our communities. So I was quite excited about the topic tonight. And when I mentioned it was taxes, they weren't quite as excited as I was. But I said, "Hey, wait a minute now. This is going to be a good show tonight." So anyway, I've got with us two experts that are going to talk to us about some taxes going on in our community. First, we've got Eric Gill with us, the Communications Division Director for St. Lucie County. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thanks for having us on, Tom.
And we've got our very good friend and partner, Frank Tidikis, with the Treasure Coast chapter of SCORE. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Tom.
Yes, sir. So I want to start this evening and talk to Eric Gill. They've got St. Lucie County's got a very important and big initiative going on this fall. So we're going to talk about their hopefully their potential enactment of a half-cent sales tax. But first, Eric, let's just kind of start real quickly. Give us a little background on and pathway to your current position with St. Lucie County.
Thanks, Tom. I've lived here in Florida now a little over 20 years. I'm originally from North Carolina, but we moved down here. My wife's family lived in Vero Beach, so that's how we ended up down here. And spent some time as a journalist working for Stewart News way back in the 90s when newspapers still, were printing
Eric,
newspapers.
Wait a minute. How old were you in the 90s? Good Lord, you must have been. You were really a cub reporter, I guess.
I was. I had a few years under my belt. I did some sports for a while.
Stewart News.
Yeah.
I think it was in a museum somewhere.
Yeah. But that's what brought me down here, and then worked at Riverside Theater in Vero Beach in the marketing PR field, and then 2003 went to work for St. Lucie County, originally in the tourism office. Spent a couple of years there doing marketing and PR for the tourism side of things, and eventually moved into the community. Well, we were media relations at the time. Now we're the Division of Communications.
Nice.
So I've been with the county 15 years now.
Well, Eric, you do a great job, and we appreciate what you do for us in the county. Always keep us informed, and you did a great job last year during the hurricane, keeping people informed and getting the information out there from the county. So now we're here tonight. Let's talk about an important upcoming issue. St. Lucie County is going to request that the voters approve a half-cent sales tax. So give us kind of an overview of this thing, Eric. What's the county looking to do here?
Yeah. On the November ballot, it'll be ballot number 14. So it'll be the very last thing on your ballot. So make sure you go the whole way down and flip it over.
Right.
Because the state has 13 other ballots. But the counts...
13?
Yeah, 13. We are ballot number 14.
Wow.
So it is asking residents to consider raising the sales tax by 0.5 cent. So right now we're at 6.5% in St. Lucie County. This, if approved, would take us to 7%. and that would generate about $18.5 million annually.
Wow.
For 10 years. It does have a sunset clause, and after 10 years, we would have to go back out to the voters to say, did you agree with what the money we raised and the projects we spent it on? And it would also bring us up to 7%, which is where Indian River, Okeechobee, and Palm Beach.
Well, that was going to be my question. Kind of tell us, how do we currently compare, and what would the half-cent do to us in comparison to our neighboring counties?
Sure. So statewide, the sales tax is 6%, and then they give local governments the option to do what they call a surtax, and you can a half cent or a full cent. There's time limits on it, but it can only be used for what they call capital needs and infrastructure. So you can only build things and fix things. We can't use it to put lifeguards on the beach or programs at the libraries. And our focus is better roads, more sidewalks, and cleaner rivers. So repaving, sidewalks, drainage, roads, bridges, culverts.
Okay.
And when we say cleaner rivers, we don't want to be misleading. We're not going to be able to stop Lake Okeechobee discharges, unfortunately. But we were talking about projects.
Build a wall.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's already been taken.
Yeah, but we're focusing on our local tributaries like Taylor Creek. If you ever drive over South Beach Bridge, after a few days of rain, you see that dark water coming off Taylor Creek. We want to collect that, store it somewhere, let it treat naturally, and before it's being discharged.
So build some more attenuation facilities.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Water retention, stormwater,
Okay.
and then that'll help not just with flooding in neighborhoods, but
Right.
water quality.
Okay.
So.
Let's, in typical business fashion, let's talk downside. What happens if this thing doesn't pass?
Yeah, that's a good question. The need doesn't go away. We have a backlog of infrastructure projects. In 2010, when the economy went and the property values shrunk, our revenue shrunk too. And so a lot of the maintenance costs we deferred. So a good example is we should be repaving roads every 15 years. We're on a 75-year repaving cycle.
Wow.
So by the time you get to 75 years, it's a dirt road, and then it's 10 times the cost to rebuild it, because now you got to put in extra drainage, and the requirements have changed rather than just repaving and maintaining. And it isn't just St. Lucie County. The two cities will also benefit this. We'll split that $18.5 million based off population. And so Port St. Lucie will get funds, City of Fort Pierce will get funds, and each of us have identified projects, and it's a little different depending where you live. Port St. Lucie has a 20-year sidewalk plan. Those that have been here for years knows it was a GDC community, just homes put in.
Sidewalks.
No sidewalks, yeah. So they've got a 20-year plan, but the revenue is just not there. With this sales tax, they can cut that to 10 years. Wow. So by the time this sunsets, they can take care of their 20-year sidewalk plan.
How many votes, percentage, does it take to have this thing pass?
All we need is 50% plus one. So we don't need a supermajority like some of the other constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. We just need 50% of the voters plus one.
Talk about support. I mean, this would benefit businesses, which is what our show is all about. So, I mean, what kind of support have you already kind of gathered up for the half-cent sales tax?
Yeah, we've been meeting with a number of Treasure Coast Builders Associations come out and supported it. The Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Council. We did a presentation last month. I think they understand the need in the infrastructure. For the infrastructure, because again, you can recruit businesses all you want, but if they have to drive down pothole-ridden roads, that's a turnoff.
That's right. I agreed. When would this go into effect? And when is the vote, and when would it go into effect?
It'll be, like I said, it'll be on the November 6th ballot. Okay. It'll be number 14. We're trying to get out early because a large percentage of the voters these days vote by mail, and those ballots will be going out at the beginning of October, and then early voting starts, I think, October 20th, and the mid-October. So even though it's on the November 6th ballot, a number of people vote way before November. And if it's approved, it'll go into effect starting January 1. Okay. And it's good to let residents know it doesn't include groceries. It won't be an addition on the gas tax. That's another common question we get. St. Lucie County does have a gas tax. Why don't we use that money? But really, the gas taxes have remained flat since 2007. Cars are more fuel efficient, so the revenue is just not there to support the maintenance projects that we had, and plus the population's grown. So there's a lot more people using our roads, and the benefit of the sales tax is that 15 to 20% of the people paying for it don't live here. You know, it's tourists.
Well, that
coming
was
in
I was going to ask, do tourists are they going to pay a portion of all that's going on?
Absolutely. You know, those that come in every March for the Mets games and congest the roads there in St. Lucie West, which is one of the projects Port St. Lucie wants to work on. You know, when they after the ball game and go out to dinner and, you know, do some shopping, yeah, they'll be paying that additional tax.
Okay. Now, I think you answered this question, but I kind of unique. I'm glad you said it. But so the money will be spent across the entire county, including the two cities.
Yeah, and even St. Lucie Village gets $25,000 a year. So the village, so all the municipalities will get a portion of the revenues.
Now, I think one of the interesting parts of this is because there's always that question of, well, you know, if we vote for this thing, how do we know it really gets spent on what Eric says they're going to spend it on? But you guys have kind of put in some layers of protection on this thing.
Absolutely,
to make sure.
yeah. First and foremost, there's a state statute that says it has to be spent on capital infrastructure. But we also are looking at creating citizens oversight committees. Each municipality will have its own oversight committee. It'll be a board. You know, that's not yet been worked out because we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch. We want to make sure it gets passed, but we still have November and December to formalize how big those committees are, who's going to appoint, and then they'll meet probably monthly or quarterly and make sure the projects are being done that we said we were going to do. And we have a website up now with information about the sales tax. If it's passed, we'll continue to use that website to update the public on, okay, you know, phase 1 of Prima Vista has already been done, or, you know, we've done these sidewalks. And that was part of the thinking and going in and picking the projects we picked were finding projects that were shovel ready, that you know, so hopefully, obviously we can't start January 1 because, you know, permits and things like that, but hopefully by February we can start seeing paving projects underway.
Okay.
Boy, how important is this with, you know, Dr. Jerry Parrish?
Well,
Florida scorecard.
Right, I was going to say, you know, we just had Jerry Parrish down, and he talked about it. And, you know, I think it was interesting. You know, one of the things he posed to the crowd that day was he talked about 5 million new residents, and you talked about it, Eric, you know, new growth in population, but 5 million new residents in the state of Florida by 2030. And you know, he posed the question to the group. He said, "Are you ready?" Yeah. So I think, again, this is all part of really getting ready for what we know is happening every day.
And playing catch up, you know. It's just, you deferred maintenance. It's like, hey, I did this, you know, my house needed painted 3 years ago, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And after Matthew last year, it was like, wow, I really need to bite the bullet and paint the house this year, you know.
Now, are you the county's going to have some open houses where there's going to actually be some live interchange, you know, exchange of ideas about this?
Yes, and then the county and the two cities, Wednesday, September 26th at the Fenn Center in Virginia Avenue there in Fort Pierce from 5 to 8, and Thursday, September 27th from 5 to 8, the Port St. Lucie Community Center on Oroso. It's going to be a drop-in style. Residents can come in and ask questions, and we're going to have different booths set up with representatives from the county and the two cities, whether it's a road projects, water projects, or sidewalks, and residents can go through, get more information.
So they'll be able to see the projects.
See the projects, or say, I live in my neighborhood, how's this going to benefit me? And we can, and even I did a presentation recently to the President's Council in South Hutchinson Island, and they said, well, you know what, A1A's been paved, we've got plenty of sidewalks. It's a valid point, but you have to leave the island sometime. You know, I'm lucky enough to live over there, but unfortunately you have to leave. And you have to think too about emergency responders. You know, Old Dixie High, the bridge over Taylor Creek there at Old Dixie has been closed since Hurricane Irma. You know, so that shortcut to get to North Beach, now they got to go all the way up to US 1. And now may not seem like that long of a time, but if you're suffering from a heart attack or a stroke, or, you know, that's those seconds count.
Is that a project? Are you gonna? Would that be one of the projects?
It would be, yeah.
Okay.
It's because we had 12 different culverts fail after Irma. That, you know, things that we kept. What we used to do is to cut down on maintenance. Instead of replacing the whole culvert, we'd sleeve it. So we put a smaller culvert inside that culvert. Well, that just messes with the flow, you know. Then you got flooding issue, but over time they just, you know, collapse. And Edwards Road's another example. You know, we thought we had a pothole in Edwards Road. Next thing you know, dig a shovel down there, and the whole shovel disappears. We had a collapsed culvert. You don't know until you get in there. Now that's a $6 million project.
Wow.
To redo. You know, we thought we just had to repave Edwards Road, but now once we get in underneath the roadway, that's now a $6 million project.
$6 million surprise. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So, again, let us stress, when is the vote? It's
November 6th.
November 6th.
That'd be number 14 on the ballot.
Number 14, and you say that this is the end of the ballot, so you've really got to pay attention and make sure you go to the last page, I
Yeah,
guess.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's a lot of things on the ballot that could add additional impacts to the county. Amendment 1 is an additional homestead exemption. It sounds good on paper, and people, I'd like another 25,000. But you look at the math, you go to the property appraisers.
Wrong.
Yeah, you go to the property appraisers website. They have a calculator. Less than 40% of homeowners in St. Lucie County will actually see that full benefit because it's based off values.
Right.
So some of it, I don't want to say is misleading, but
Right.
it's
Yes means no or maybe.
yeah.
Well, my father, a former county administrator, he gave me his opinion the other night on the new homestead. So, he understands, just like you're saying, he understands maintenance and staying on top of things in the county, and that could really hurt the county's revenue if that.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be about a $6 to $8 million loss if Amendment 1 passes.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
and the sad thing is all of our voters could vote it down in this county, but if it's a statewide vote, so it carries in Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, that's
Right.
But luckily they need a 60% approval because that is a constitutional amendment change. So
Okay. All right, and is there a website or someplace somebody could go get more information so they could kind of do a little research on their own?
Absolutely, yeah. We have slchalfcent.com or .org, and then we also have PSL half cent and FP half cent. They all go to the same website,
Okay.
but so each municipality has their projects up there. We have a frequently asked question. If you have a question, you don't see it on there, there's an email link. Send it to us, and we'll respond and then add your question to the list.
Okay.
Can we add that to our website? Can we tie yours to ours? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. We'd love that.
Cool.
So Wednesday, September 26th in Fort Pierce at the Finn Center
At 5?
at 5 o'clock. And then Thursday, September the 27th at the Port St. Lucie Community Center down on Aroso Boulevard at 5 also.
Yeah, we're happy to welcome anybody. One of the cool things we're doing, bring the kids. We are working with our libraries. Libraries have virtual headsets, VR headsets, and so we're doing some VR videos to go down some of the bumpy roads. Hopefully, we'll have vomit nauseous bags in case, because some of that's pretty
I love
intense.
it. Yeah, okay.
But
like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yes. So.
It's like the hurricane simulator.
Yeah.
Well, Eric,
that in too.
again, we appreciate what you do for us in the county, and again, you've always you do a great job of keeping us informed and bringing us the information about what's going on. So we do appreciate that and all the work you do with on the TV station for the county. What channel is that?
It's Comcast 28 or UVerse 99.
All right, nice, and coffee with the commissioner. And
Yeah,
all
we do
all the events you do. So you
Well,
do
thank you.
do some great work. So.
I appreciate you having us on.
Yep, we appreciate it, and we'll make sure that we keep this information out there and in front of people because the like you say, ballots are out in October, so you'll be getting your first returns. Okay, with that, we will take a quick break here and be right back. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Startup Talk.
With any business, the most valuable asset are the people and the teams, no matter how small or large the organization. Hi, I'm Catherine Culhane, Associate Director for the Florida SBDC at Indian River State College. Let us help your organization turbocharge your team. As a certified driving forces analyst, I will help management work more effectively with your people, increase and improve communication, reduce conflict and stress, better understand strengths and weaknesses so that your people are properly aligned in their jobs. Hire the right people. Let the Florida SBDC at IRSC transform your company using a customized assessment system, knowledge, and resources. Grow and accelerate your organization by turbocharging your team. To get started, contact the Florida SBDC at IRSC.
For confidential one-on-one business consulting at no cost, contact the Florida SBDC at IRSC at 336-6285. Online at irscbiz.com. Are you thinking about a new business card, a postcard or invite, a brochure, sign, a banner, or something else that needs to be printed? Have you been thinking about getting t-shirts or other apparel for your group, charity, or special event? Don't know where to start? Express Printing can help.
Whether you're starting a business or building one, Express Printing can offer insight on how to separate you from your competition.
Express Printing of Port St. Lucie has the widest selection of printed items anywhere. Stop by their shop on US 1 between Sam's Club and Walmart. Their staff will help you with everything from design to completion.
Express Printing in Port St. Lucie is proud to present Startup Talk from Indian River State College. The backbone of America is its entrepreneurial spirit, shared by Express Printing and Indian River State College.
Trust Express Printing for all your printing needs. Call 878-7975
That's 878-7975.
for Express Printing in Port St. Lucie. The City of Fort Pierce will host the first annual Lincoln Park Business Expo Friday, September 7th at Percy Peak Gymnasium from 11 till 6, featuring small business educational workshops on marketing, financial management, tips and tricks from zoning, plus permits and business licensing. Attendees receive free lunch and a chance to sell their goods at the community pop-up vendor shop, open to the public from 4 till 6. Business owners and startups, don't miss the Lincoln Park Business Expo. For registration and information, call 467-3168. You're listening to WSTU Stewart.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
And we are back. This is Startup Talk from the Dan K. Richardson Entrepreneurship Development Institute here at Indian River State College. I'm Tom Kindred, Regional Director for the Florida SBDC at IRSC, and I am happy and to have our next guest with us here tonight, a very good friend and a great partner with Treasure Coast chapter of SCORE, our good friend Frank Tidikis. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Yes, sir. And so our show tonight is all about taxes. So we heard from Eric Gill earlier about the county's desire to implement a half-cent sales tax to raise some funds to do some great work in our county. And now, Frank, we're going to talk about the importance of really sales and use tax to local businesses. But before we get into that, real quick, give us a little background on your pathway to SCORE here along Treasure Coast.
Well, I originally started out my career in healthcare and hospital management, and then I came to Florida originally and opened up the Delray Medical Center down Delray Beach, Florida. And then I got involved in other healthcare businesses. Most recently was concierge medicine, MD VIP, and we sold the company, and I retired for a second or third time. But at any rate, I've been involved in different businesses in the healthcare sphere and also some retail businesses locally in the Stewart area.
Nice. Okay. And you are a member of the, I shouldn't say member, you may be an officer of the Treasure Coast chapter of SCORE. You serve with that organization.
I do.
Yeah.
And been with SCORE now for about 10 years.
Wow.
And, there's 3 stages of life. The first stage is learning, the second stage is earning, and the third stage is returning. And fortunately, I'm blessed to be in the returning stage.
I know. I missed a stage.
Yeah, what was that middle one again?
Yeah, it was the earning stage. Maybe I need to go back. I need to return to the earning stage. Okay, so real quickly before we get started on taxes, give us just a quick overview of SCORE. What do you purpose, mission of the group here along the Treasure Coast?
Well, SCORE is a volunteer arm of the Small Business Administration, and basically we were established in 1963. We have over 300 chapters nationally across the country with 10,000 volunteers or folks like myself, and we have a chapter here in the Treasure Coast where we cover from Indian River County on down to Martin County. And because we're spread out, we do have an office here in Fort Pierce that is provided by the government. We're a low-budget outfit from the standpoint that...
Aren't we all?
Yeah. But we work through the Chamber of Commerce's because of the geographic spread.
Right.
And so our counselors can be found at our office in Fort Pierce, and they're also work it through the chambers. Like, for example, on Friday mornings, I'm at the Jensen Beach Chamber of Commerce. Some other folks are up at the Indian River Chamber, some Sebastian River Chamber. So we're able to cover that geographic spread.
You also have an office in there at the Pruitt campus.
We do, and also at the incubator down on at Chastain campus down in Martin
absolutely.
County.
Okay, nice.
But I'd just like to point out that our chapter is one of 8 chapters that's a platinum chapter for 5 years running with the SCORE organization, and that's driven by the amount of services that we render through the chapter.
Nice. Okay. Great organization and great partner with the Florida SBDC at IRSC. We always appreciate that partnership, and you guys have been good to us. You've always supported our events and served with us and work with us on workshops and training. So we do appreciate that partnership. Let's talk about sales tax and use tax. Obviously, your organization and the Florida SBDC, we work a lot of times with startups, folks that are just creating new businesses. Met with one of those folks today, starting a new business. How does one get the whole process started in preparation of paying those sales taxes?
Well, first of all, let me say that not everybody has to pay a sales tax, depending on the type of business that you're in. And the Department of Revenue, the Florida Department of Revenue, is responsible for collecting over 30 different taxes in the state of Florida. But let's just hone in on the sales and the use tax and start off with a definition. Sales tax basically is a tax on a transaction that takes place. A use tax is a tax that's imposed on the right to use a service or a product. Talk about sales tax first, and then I'll come back to use tax, because use tax is going to get impacted by this recent Supreme Court decision that we had. That was North Dakota versus the Wayfair, where the Supreme Court
the internet thing, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. And normally if you buy something over the internet, you didn't have to pay a tax on it. That changed when the Supreme Court came out with this North Dakota versus Wayfair decision, and they said basically, if you buy something over the net, businesses are going to have to collect a tax. Now, they did do a carve-out for small businesses, and the carve-out basically is that if you have less than 200 customers in a state, you don't have to charge a tax. Or if you have less than $100,000 worth of business, you don't have to charge a tax. But the Amazons of the world are going to be coming after you for sales tax. But that's a whole other issue. That's part of the use tax, Right. And the use tax basically is if you buy a product someplace else and you use it in the state of Florida, the state feels that you owe them the revenue or the tax that you would have paid. Example, if I go up to Georgia and I buy an automobile and I pay a 4% tax up in Georgia, I should come back to the state of Florida and pay them the additional 2% or the difference. If I paid 6% in another location, I don't owe the state of Florida any money. If I paid 0 tax, I owe the state of Florida money. Now, we know that every citizen in this state files with the Department of Revenue and pays them every time they buy something out of state over the internet.
Sure. Yeah, I'm quite certain of that. All right.
Well, I think most folks do anyway.
Yeah, sure. I do.
Present company accepted, maybe.
All right. So go ahead.
But anyway, come back to the sales part. Sales tax and the transaction in the state of Florida. Basically, if there is a sale of tangible property, you go into a store, hardware store, you buy something, you're going to pay sales tax. Eric earlier had mentioned that the tax that they're asking for in the county wouldn't be on food. I think there's an exception to that. Okay, food that we would normally consume doesn't get taxed. That's exempt from tax. However, if it's a prepared food item, it gets taxed. And so that would also be subject to the county tax. And a good example is take water. There's no tax on water because we need water to live. We need food to live. However, if you buy flavored water, you're going to pay a tax on it.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Got it.
All right.
the other thing is there's a sales tax on rentals, transient rentals. So if you're renting property for less than 180 days, you owe the state sales tax on that transaction. If you do a yearly rental with somebody, or say 7 months or 9 months, you don't owe the state any money on a sales tax side.
Okay.
There's also a tax on commercial rentals. So if you're renting space, you're going to pay a sales tax or a pro rata portion of the sales tax that the landlord would have to pay. The other thing is there's a tax on amusements. And you don't normally see this, like, say, in a movie ticket, even though the state requires that you have a separate line item for the tax so that people can see how much they're paying in tax. The exception to that is in movie theaters, and the tax is rolled into the price and you don't see it, but there is a sales tax on amusements. There's a sales tax on service warranties. So if you sign a service contract for your washer and dryer and your home appliances, you're going to pay a sales tax on those items also. And then there's sales tax on some other services, security services, commercial cleaning services, things along those lines. So pretty much, most events are taxable, with the exception of personal services, or most transactions are taxable.
All right. So that's sales tax, use tax. You've done a good job defining. And again, so once you've figured out if you should be collecting tax as a small business owner, how does one kind of get registered and get set up with the Department of Revenue?
Well, you go online to the Department of Revenue, or you can go down here. The Department of Revenue has an office here in Fort Pierce. You can go into the office in Fort Pierce and you can register, and they will set you up. If you go into the office in Fort Pierce, you get charged $5. I've never understood this. If you go online, it doesn't cost you anything.
Oh, wow.
So I would encourage you to go online.
Good tip. Good tip.
It may after that Supreme Court decision.
But anyway, you'll register with the Department of Revenue, and the Department of Revenue will then provide you with there's 3 ways in which you can pay your tax. They can give you a coupon book that you mail in periodically, or you can go online and you can pay your tax, or you can telefile your tax. You can set it up either way. They make it very easy to collect, for you to pay the tax. You're due to pay that tax the 20th day after the close of the month. So, for example, if your business did $5,000 worth of business and you owe $300 in tax, you in the month of July, you would end up having to pay that tax by the 20th of August.
Right. And I think it's always important whenever we're talking to new businesses and we're explaining things like sales and use tax. It's always important to really explain to those businesses that they're just collecting that money on behalf of the state. Never really was their money. Explain that.
That's exactly it. At the time of the transaction, that money then becomes the state's money. Right. And you've got to pony it up. Even if you aren't required to, if you're in business and you're not required to collect the tax, or some of your transactions are not taxable events, you still have to file the forms. I had an aircraft leasing company one time, and I used to rent my plane out to a flying club, and the flying club collected the sales tax. And when I wanted to fly, I would pay the flying club. They paid the tax. I never filed any forms with the state of Florida, and one day my mother called me and She lived over in Pinellas County, and she said, there were some fellas here looking for you.
Uh-oh.
And I said, who were they, Bob? She said, I don't know. They were from the Department of Revenue. And anyway, we sat down with the Department of Revenue when we finally got together, or they caught up with me, let's put it that way. And they said, you know, you haven't filed any paperwork all these years. And I've been doing this for like 5 years. Right. And but so eventually they'll catch you.
Well, and again, I think your story brings up a very good point, and that's kind of again why we've done a show tonight on it, because it is so important. You can get, you know, legitimately confused by things that are taxable and not taxable, and should you be collecting, and it's not something a business owner really wants to play around with. You really want to understand sales and use tax.
Right. And there's some advantages to the business owner too, because once you file with the Department of Revenue, you also get a reseller certificate. So if you have items that you are going to pass on to another consumer and collect tax on, you don't want to pay tax on those items that you buy for your business to resell. Right. And so that then gives you the opportunity to whoever you're doing business with to give them a copy of that reseller certificate and say, I really don't have to pay tax on these items.
Right. And the Department of Revenue, having been in business myself for 25 years, Department of Revenue is apt to audit you, are they not? I mean, that is a fairly regular occurrence with Department of Revenue.
They do have an enforcement arm, and you know, but I think that I've been in business in Florida since 1980. And I've never been audited other than the one issue with the aircraft. But I don't know how they determine it, but there are folks that are part of that are part of their audit division.
Sure. Let's look at a couple specifics because again we've got a lot of this going on in our region. I mean, how are taxes treated for manufacturers?
Well, manufacturers and installers are treated a little bit differently. Okay, if you have a manufacturer who installs something on permanent or real property, they have to pay a sales tax on the materials that they purchase and the items that they use in the manufacturing process, so the tools and the equipment. Take an example of, say, a company that manufactures hurricane shutters. All right, they're going to pay a tax on the material that they're using, the aluminum. They're going to pay a tax on the tools that they use in the manufacturing process. They also have to pay a tax on the labor that goes into the fabrication of the product. Now, you know, that's pretty dicey for a business to turn around and to keep track of how much time somebody spends manufacturing something versus setting up and cleaning up during the course of the day.
Why would they have to pay for the labor?
That's all part of the sales tax process. I mean, and I'll contrast that with manufacturers who don't install. Okay, but anyway, they'll use most. Manufacturers will use a percentage split. So they'll say, for example, well, Tom, you're working 80% of the time and you're setting up and cleaning up the other 20% of the time, and so we'll pay a tax on that 20% of the labor. So these are manufacturers who install the product. Then if you have a manufacturer who doesn't install, let's just say you have a company that manufactures shutters, hurricane shutters, and they sell them to contractors, and the contractors do the installation. They don't pay a sales tax on any of the materials purchased or the fabrication labor. Okay, it is then up to the contractor to collect the sales tax from that aspect of it. The contractor or whoever is doing the installation needs a reseller certificate. Then there's a whole other cut in terms of installers. If you buy something and it's being installed on a permanent fixture, land or property, okay, the installer pays the sales tax to whoever they bought the item from, and they can't charge the customer. Now they can put it into their pricing mechanism, but they can't charge the customer. I had some fellows that came out to the house one time and were installing some screen doors for me. And they said, we're going to give you a deal. We're not going to charge you sales tax. I said, well, geez, I really appreciate the break, fellas, but, you can't charge me sales tax anyway. You have to pay the tax. And the fellow looked at me and he said, you know about that? And I said,
Yes.
Let me ask you, I spent many, many years in the ag industry, and it was interesting. There was some little obscure rules in the ag industry. Some things were exempt based on the way they were used. I'll never forget twine. Twine was one of those products that if it was used to bale hay, I think it was taxable. But if it was used to in stick farming or something, it wasn't taxable. Talk a little bit about some of the things that may be tax exempt. Are there products out there that are tax exempt?
there are some products out there that are tax exempt, and give you a good example on the agricultural side. Horse feed is tax exempt. Now, I never figured out how that happened other than the lobby up in Ocala got to those fellows up in Tallahassee and were able to carve it out, or the racehorsing and race course horse industry was able to get it carved out. So there are some carve-outs and there are some exemptions from the sales tax side of it. If you're performing a service and you don't have a tangible product, there is no sales tax. I give you a good example. I mean, I have a mechanic that I do business with, and I have to bring the parts. So I'll go and I'll buy the parts and I'll pay the sales tax, and then Dave will turn around and do the repair. He'll diagnose the problem, say this is what you need. And I asked him one time, I said, Dave, why are you doing that? And he said, I don't want to fool with the Department of Revenue. He said, I just fill out that form and I put 0 in terms of, how much of your revenue was a taxable event.
Right.
And so there are some things in which you don't have to provide a sales tax.
And again, let's make clear, even if you're in the business that doesn't collect taxes, did you say you have to file a report?
Yes, the Department of Revenue, they want to turn around and track the businesses in the state of Florida. And, there are some businesses that obviously that don't have to pay a tax. If you're in a service business and you're providing personal services, there is no tax. If you are providing personal services and you also deliver a product occasionally, and a good example is a photographer. A photographer, personal services, if they deliver their work to somebody digitally, in other words, they email them the pictures or they give them the prints along, electronically, there is no tax for their services.
Wow.
If the photographer turns around and provides a portrait or an album, they have to charge sales tax not only on the portrait and the album, but they also have to charge it on their labor for when they took the picture.
Okay. And again, this reiterates the concept that you've got to be so careful in the business to understand these sales and use taxes.
Yes, but the state of Florida, they're, they want their money, they want their due, and they deserve it, I guess. But at any rate, they have a lot of resources out there. For instance, they have a booklet on manufacturers and installers. They have a booklet on the agricultural industry. They have booklets on what counties charge, or they have a sheet in terms of what counties are able to charge the over and above the 6%, because counties can elect to go up to 1.5 cents above the 6%, as long as the voters approve it. So if you're selling something to somebody that's going to be used in, and I live in Martin County, 6%, and I'm selling something to somebody in St. Lucie County, I've got to charge that individual in St. Lucie County the 6.5%. And so And when I file with the state of Florida, I have to let them know, what percentage of my sales took place in other counties. They then distribute the money to the county, so the business isn't responsible for mailing a check to St. Lucie
I was
County.
going to say that'd be a nightmare.
It would be a nightmare. You're absolutely right, Glenn.
Now, does the SCORE and the SBDC still partner on a sales and use tax seminar? Are we still doing those?
We do. We have 4 sales and use tax seminars that take place a year. We do them once a quarter, and we do them in different locations. Up in Indian River, St. Lucie, Port St. Lucie, and then we'll also do them down in Martin County.
Okay. Real quick, as we come to a close here, how does someone get in touch with SCORE? How would somebody reach out and use your services?
Well, you can do. We have as I mentioned, we have an office here in Fort Pierce, and so you can either give us a call at 772-489-0548, or you can go on our website, which is treasurecoast.score.org. And there you can set up an appointment with a counselor, a mentor. You can access any one of the templates that we have available.
Okay. Frank, I appreciate it. And see, I think that's a great conversation about taxes. I love talking taxes because I paid an awful lot of them through 25 years in business. So,
Boy, learned a lot, that's for sure.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank, for all you do for our business community. And with that, we will bring to close another segment of Startup Talk. I want to thank our guests tonight, Eric Gill from St. Lucie County and Frank Tidikis from the Treasure Coast chapter of SCORE, and remind everyone that all the business assistance programs and resources discussed on this segment are available through IRSC's Dan K. Richardson Entrepreneurship Development Institute, engaged at every stage of enterprise. For more information on the EDI and the Florida SBDC at IRSC, you can always visit irscbiz.com. That's irscbiz.com. As always, I want to thank our partners, Greg, and here at WPSL, WSTU, and WPSL TV. With that, we will talk to you next week on Startup Talk.
You've been listening to Startup Talk on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WSTU, Stewart, both stations on Google Home, Alexa, and Echo.